So my last impressions of the Xbox 360, the PS3, and the Wii is this. They are okay consoles. At least the Xbox 360 was a pretty good one for what I used it for. It had its fucking problems, but hey, most computers have problems too, but yet people consider that the most superior platform of gaming. Then you look at the PS3. It was dependable. It was good. It didn't really break on me at all, so I was pretty happy with it. Had a good library of good platforming games that I thoroughly played. Had a good exclusives. The Xbox 360 had very good exclusives, and the Wii had excellent exclusives as well, if you count Skyward Sword. As much as I dislike the concept behind the game, I didn't think it was bad. It was just the fact that, if you have to fucking recalibrate a controller every 3 minutes, it's kind of annoying. So, going back on to the Xbox 360, I had to send this thing in twice. Now, this console was notorious, at least for the Xbox 360 Classic 2006 version of the console, to be inferior when it came to hardware. It would break down on you, get your red ring of death. Luckily, my console was under warranty, so I was able to send it in the first time for free. The second time was honored by Microsoft because of the fact that Halo Reach was doing some issues where it would actually fry the consoles somehow, and I would not know why, or I cannot remember why it did this. But Xbox 360 had a shit fit. The video was all fucked up. Couldn't play the game. It was rendered useless at this point. So, sent it in, got it fixed. They updated the components inside the shell, and then they pretty much sent it back to me, and I had a big old shit-eating grin on my face. Then we all skipped merrily down the road, dancing with our dinglings flinging around like a helicopter. Basically, Xbox 360, when it comes to hardware-wise, was not that great. I mean, it had great shading, when it came to certain games, such as, Darksiders, Batman Arkham Asylum had the better graphics because the shading was nice. It had a nice depth to the environments. And some people say that graphics don't matter, and I agree with them. It usually doesn't matter, but sometimes when you want to go for the better version, how it looks visually at this point, you just go with the better looking version. I mean, that's all you have to do. I mean, if it looks nice, it looks nice. So, with the PS3, I usually aimed for a lot of exclusive games, as well as games that were cheaper, and they played, if the game was good, I went after that. So, over time, I just sort of mellowed down with collecting for the Xbox 360, because primarily I could not ask to be used, or have to use gold. And that was one of my major problems with the Xbox 360, I think, and coming into a new generation is going to be a really ass-soaring situation, but I'll break in that into a moment. But Xbox Gold, or Arcade Live, whatever you want to call it, it's, to me, one of the biggest money-grabbing schemes I've ever seen in my life. I mean, yeah, I had good times playing on the online service, but that should be included. I mean, you're paying $300 out of the nose when this thing first came out. I mean, yeah, the original Xbox also had a charge system to it as well, but I didn't buy the Xbox original at first. I bought it, or got it for free secondhand from a buddy. So, it does not really, signify anything for me. Or it does not matter to me. But the Xbox 360 overall, it just felt like they were just milking you for money constantly. And that's how I felt. I mean, granted, I very sparingly renewed my subscription to the Xbox 360 till this year. I was like, you know what, screw this. I don't need this Xbox Gold shit anymore. I'd rather just try to find cheap alternatives to the games I already have on the Xbox 360 when I want to play online with a game. And that, of course, comes with the PlayStation 3. Now, a lot of people say that the Xbox 360 is better. Now, the only reason why these people are primarily saying that is because they're paying for it, so they think they're getting a better service out of it. The only exception to me agreeing with them is the cross-chat platforming here, with the being able to communicate with people while you're playing two different games. I agree, that should have been with the PS3. I don't see how that was not added with any future patches, but it's too late now to worry about that too much. Now, I personally cannot give two shits when it comes to that, mostly on the PS3 anyways, because, one, I'm not paying for it. I'm able to just pop my disc into the tray, pre-install it, and play the game. Now, that's the other problem I had with the PS3, was you have to install games. like a big chunk of these games, and it required space, a lot of space, at least 3 gigs, 4 gigs, 5 gigs, 8 gigs. This adds up a lot over time, and I'm very fearful, or at least very terrified, with the PS4, because I heard that there was like a 38 gigabyte install or pre-install onto the hard drive for one of the games, which I can kind of see that because these games are, a little step up from the PS3, so therefore a lot of shit's going on and it needs a dedicated platform to sort of tap dance on, which I can understand that, but 500 gigabytes, gosh, I could see the sales of Samsung terabyte drives going through the roof, or 3 terabyte drives going through the roof. And that's still barely even be able to cover half the games you're going to be installing into this thing. But anyway, it's just the fact that you have to install games onto the PS3 when these games are almost identical to graphics when it comes to Xbox 360. And you look at the 2 hardware specifications with both consoles, you see the PS3 has a little bit better. But I think there's like one thing that the Xbox 360... tongue-tied. The Xbox 360 has, and I think it was something to do with the processor or something like that. I can't remember what the fuck it was, but the space capacity on the PS3 had these discs, which were Blu-ray discs. And that's 40 gigabytes of dedicated space, which was a good thing about the PlayStation 3, was the onboard dedicated, just being able to play Blu-ray discs. So therefore you got these big discs full of content. And it gave you the most sharpest resolution disc to date, exception to the fact I think it has the same issue as Laserdiscs with disc rot. Don't hold me to that. I think these are earlier discs, though. But, some of these games, at least when it came to exclusives, looked gorgeous. I mean, some people are saying, well, look at Halo 4. Look at the graphics on that. Head tilt. Well, I don't give a fuck about Halo 4. Head tilt, head tilt, head tilt. It was not... I will not look that interesting to me anyway, because, quite frankly, I am not going to get gold just to play online with a fucking shooter. I just don't see the point. I mean, if you're paying for your fees when it comes to connecting to the internet in general with Cox or Comcast or Verizon or whatever you use, you know what? That should be the only fee you should be worrying about. None of this $50, $60, $40 a month. I'm sorry, not a month, but a year bullshit. But anyway, I digress. I mean, when it came down to it, every company lightly, at least exception to Nintendo, and I'll break into that in a moment, that tried to milk you for something. With the PlayStation Plus, they informed you had to get this service. You get all these free games. You get a instant collection. Not necessarily, because after a month, one of those games you're actually playing goes away. And if you don't use the service anymore, your disc or your game itself goes away, which is all common sense. It's all been discussed various times by many people, so it's nothing new to most others out there who are listening to this. But personally, I can say this. Out of all the consoles, I felt that my PlayStation 3 was the most dependable. Not once has it broken down on me. I have never really had any issues besides that whole entire PSN hacking issue way in the back in the day, and the days and the days and the days, and the way in the back of those days and said days that it happened, and then they pretty much get me to sign a clause so we can do a class action lawsuit. Tongue tags, I'm a little sleepy. But yeah, that's generally that right there. Was some pretty shady shit right there. You had Microsoft, who had a hack issue back in the day, but that wasn't any time when I had the system. But, what can you do? Out of all this, the humble, the rodent sitting on the side of the road, the Nintendo, was pretty much sitting there the entire time. I cannot remember anything in the back of my head that was bad about the Nintendo when they wwere having their system. I mean, out of all of them, they're the most, I would say, transparent, at least for now, when it came to what they had. They knew what they had for a system was not that superior. It only does or outputs 480p, but it makes some of the games like Skyward Sword look gorgeous. I mean, there's some exclusives for the system that just look really good. Donkey Kong Country Returns, you get the Mario games, which I played at one. I think I played the new Mario Brother. Excuse me. the new Super Mario Brothers Wii game there. I tried a little bit of that one. It looked pretty good. So, I mean, it had good games, sharp resolutions and all that. I mean, the gameplay was top quality with the Nintendo Wii, so, I mean, it was no complaints. It was just the fact that they charge still $30 or so for their in-house games, which kind of annoyed me. I mean, with the other systems, other platforms, they just throw the games away after a while. They just go, here you go, for $10 it's yours, and you can pretty much buy these said games. So it's not a big deal. So, I mean, it was checks and balances between all three consoles. And I can closely say that, I, out of all of them, can appreciate each console for what they were, but overall, I think the PlayStation 3, I've really felt it was the most dependable thing for me. So, that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. Thank you all for watching, and touch my nipples.